Hello and welcome back to Introduction to Astronomy. In this video we're going to discuss your lab final. The lab final is going to cover all the labs that you have done this year, and there are going to be 2 questions from each of the different labs. Okay, now the kinds of questions that I could ask you would be being able to use some kind of a measuring device. Okay, also there could be conceptual questions about the lab, and then there could be math questions in which you have to solve a math problem if I give you the formulas, which I will, and then also being able to interpret graphs. So being able to make a graph and then being able to interpret the graph, being able to find the slope of the graph. So those are all different questions that I could ask you on this exam. Okay, now at the top of the file that you opened to get to this video, there is a document that says Astronomy Lab Final Review F20. So you're going to want to open up that document. Okay, and you will see that the first lab that we're going to talk about is telescopes. So you might want to open that lab on Canvas so that you can be looking at it as we talk about it. So the first thing is, what kind of measuring devices did we use in that lab? And it was a ruler. So if I tell you, or if I give you a line or something on the exam and then ask you to measure the length of that line using your ruler, you should be able to do it to within 1 millimeter. Okay, next, what were the concepts that you learned in that lab on telescopes? Well, first you learned about what reflection was, and you should have learned about the law of reflection, which means that the angle that light bounces off a mirror is equal to the angle that the light went into the mirror. So those 2 angles must be the same. Okay, then we looked at reflection from a flat mirror, and you observed where your image appears to be in that mirror and whether you're right side up or you're upside down in a flat mirror. Okay, then we looked at 2 different kinds of curved mirrors. So you should be able to draw a picture of a concave mirror, and you should be able to draw a picture of a convex mirror, and you should know what you look like in them. So what do you look like in the convex mirror, and then also what do you look like in the concave mirror? And remember that for the concave mirror, it depended on how far away from the mirror you were. Because if you were very far away from the mirror, then you were going to be upside down and small, but then as you moved towards the mirror, it flipped. And it flipped at the focal point of that mirror. So when you went inside that focal point, then all of a sudden you were right side up and you were very large. Okay, then we talked about refraction, which was the bending of light when it went through a material. And we showed what it looked like if the material was not curved. So that was that block of plastic that you looked through. And then we also looked at the converging lens and the diverging lens. So you should be able to draw a picture of a converging lens and then a diverging lens, and then you should know what happens when light goes through each of those 2 types of lenses. maybe you should be able to draw a picture showing the light waves as they go through it and then what happens to them. Okay, I want you to know what the focal point of a converging lens was, and then how did you find it? So when you went outside, what did you do with the lens in order to identify where the focal length of that lens was? Okay, then when we came back inside, we talked about telescopes. So what do you do with two converging lenses in order to turn it into a telescope? Okay, then we had two formulas. So there was a formula that told us how far away to put the two lenses. Okay, and that's given under that math column. And then there was a formula that allowed us to calculate the magnification of our telescope. So there could be a problem on the exam where if I give you the focal length of the eyepiece and the objective, then you could calculate the distance between the lenses and you could calculate the magnification of that telescope. Okay, so let's stop the video here, and then when we come back, we're going to go to our next lab.